Welcome to our presentation by Dr. Deborah Wilcox, titled How Lifestyle Medicine Provides Well-Being. The purpose of this workshop is to address the healing and wellness effects of lifestyle medicine on personal trauma and support participants in behavior change that prevents chronic disease, promotes holistic health, and supports sustained well-being. This will be a highly active personal workshop. But before we get started, I am John Young with the Center for African American Health, and Olivia will be our tech support for today. In this webinar, you are muted and will only see the presenter and her slides, but please feel free to use the chat features and the Q&A box. Use them up. Our presenter will answer all your questions as we move along. Remember to use the chat and the Q&A box. And now, our presenter, our friend, and our teacher, Dr. Deborah Wilcox.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much for that introduction. I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see that? John, can you see that okay? Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. I am so pleased and honored that you selected to come to this workshop. And I want everyone to feel relaxed and engaged. There's also a handout called My Wellness Plan that you have access to. If you don't have a copy of it in front of you now, John will put in the chat or communicate with you on how to access that. John, you want to talk a little bit about that? How they could access the My Wellness Plan after the workshop?
Yeah, after the workshop is finished, you can go back to where you saw Dr. Wilcox's bio, and there will be a spot where you can download the document. And if you don't get one between now and the next hour or so, you can use paper and pen and write things down. But if you want to get an official one like mine, go back to where you got this information, and there will be a way of downloading it.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. So what I'd like for everyone to do is think about this workshop is for you. It's for you and your well-being, because when you take care of you, as you well know, your family benefits and the community benefits. So John has given an overview of the workshop, and you've had an overview of the workshop as well. So what we're going to do is move into gaining an awareness of how lifestyle medicine supports working through personal trauma and healing from the impacts of these experiences. As we all know, we're all in a personal trauma related to COVID-19. And we're all experiencing that as a nation, but we're also experiencing in very different ways in our personal lives. We're going to explore cultural appropriate values and behaviors that support holistic health and sustained well-being, learn the benefits of achieving healthy lifestyle changes and how these behaviors prevent chronic disease, support well-being, and sustain mental health wellness and recovery. The benefits for all of us engaging in this session today is to gain some knowledge, awareness, and skills to develop increased well-being and mental health recovery. We'll also be able to develop a personal wellness plan that you will take away from the workshop, and that you can continue to work on your holistic health and well-being from this time on, and as a sustainable takeaway. So moving forward, just a little bit about myself. I am a clinical counselor by training, a counselor educator, spent most of my career in organizational development with nonprofit organizations and city government and higher education. I'm also a health and wellness coach certified with the Wellness Inventory. And we could talk about that later, and you could ask questions related to that. But let's just move forward and look at the concept of wellness. And let's explore that. What is wellness? A process of exploration. A lot of this work comes from one of the pioneers in the wellness movement, and that is Dr. John W. Travis, who is MD out in California, who started the wellness movement back in the early 70s that really intimidated the Medical Association, the association for most of our primary care specialists, to start to look at holistic ways of managing health infused with traditional allopathic medicine. And so I've served on the National Wellness Institute board for the last 6 years, and which this organization is one of the pioneer organizations of the wellness movement. Wellness is a choice. It's a decision that you make to move toward optimal health. And we'll explore what optimal health means. Wellness is a way of life, a lifestyle you design to achieve your highest potential for well-being. In other words, everything we do every single day, our thoughts, words, deeds, behaviors, all contribute to our well-being or challenge our well-being. So wellness is a process. It's not something that you just have and I'm well and that's it. No, it's an ongoing process, and it's ongoing, a way of paying attention to ourselves in mind, body, and spirit. A developing awareness that there's no endpoint, but the health and happiness are possible in each moment in our lives, here and now, in the present moment. Wellness is the integration of body, mind, and spirit, the appreciation that everything you do, think, and feel and believe has an impact on your state of health. Wellness is the loving acceptance of yourself. The most important aspect of holistic health, or whole person wellness, is self-love. And that's what I want us to focus on today. Everything in this workshop has to do with your personal health and well-being, and more importantly, your love for yourself. What is lifestyle medicine? Lifestyle medicine is a science. It's a very new science. Lifestyle medicine, the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, has only been organized for the past 4 years. So it's a new science. It's the application of healthy lifestyles and interventions for the prevention and treatment of chronic disease, and has gained significant momentum as a specialty in recent years. Aligned with the principles and values of cultural competency, mental health, recovery, and peer support, this workshop will address the positive interventions that heal the effects of trauma and engage and encourage participants to support their whole health and well-being. When I say peer support, I'm talking about individuals who are in the mental health recovery movement, who have lived experiences, who are working on their mental health recovery by integrating holistic health that supports their mental health recovery. So we are moving into a new era of healthcare. With the thanks of the Obama administration, the Affordable Care Act has allowed us to be able to stretch the way we look at healthcare, to look at healthcare from a broad perspective, to include what we are now talking about in public policy, healthcare policy, called the social determinants of health, which means that everyone deserves to have access to healthcare. Everyone deserves to have access to housing, food, social support, employment, all of those things that create healthy lifestyles and a rich way of living and quality of life. So a wellness tour throughout history. Some of you might be familiar with the work of Rumi, who is a 13th century poet and Sufi spiritual guide and sage. He says, "You already have the precious mixture that will make you well, so use it." In other words, what Rumi is saying here in an ancient with his antiquitous, ancient philosophy, is that we all have what we need to be well. What we have to do is embrace our power and align our wellness goals to keep us well on an everyday basis. In other words, wellness is sustainable. It's an ongoing process. So let's look at this illness and wellness continuum. Some of you all might be aware of this because this particular continuum was developed by Dr. John Travis, who was one of the pioneers of the wellness movement. And this particular illness wellness continuum is being infused in all aspects of wellness research and education. This model shows the relationship of the wellness and treatment paradigms. Moving from the center to the left shows progressively worsening state of health. So when you see the left side of the continuum, you see premature death. Moving to the right of the center indicates increasing levels of health and well-being. The treatment paradigm can only take you to a neutral point where the symptoms of disease have been alleviated. The wellness paradigm, utilized at any point on the continuum, moves one towards even higher levels of well-being. In other words, we have to increase the way we look at wellness. Wellness is not the absence of disease. All of us have some form of health challenges that we are negotiating. However, in our day-to-day wellness behaviors, we want to make sure that we move to the right side of the continuum, moving toward our education, our health awareness, education, and growth, like we're doing today. That moves us to a high level of wellness, as opposed to the left side that can lead us all the way through symptoms and disability and often premature death. So when we encounter our healthcare providers, our primary care, our specialists, we want to make sure that we are active in our own care and always keeping in mind our wellness goals. That's why we have provided what we call My Wellness Plan, the handout that deals with various aspects of holistic health: mental, physical, spiritual, nutritional, family, emotional. That particular My Wellness Plan allows you to create your own wellness plan for your own unique needs. So in other words, let's keep moving through our wellness continuum and moving ourselves to our high levels of wellness. So as we look at wellness, you know, a state of health is optimal. And so, but what goes on underneath the state of health? It's like the iceberg effect. We see the state of health and, you know, that's what we see, and we see it in ourselves, we see it in other people. But what really creates optimal well-being is what's underneath that iceberg. It's lifestyle. What we do every single day, how we think, how we feel, what we eat, how we move our bodies, how we take care of our emotional health. All of that has to do with lifestyle. It's at the behavior level, which supports the state of health. And then the next level that creates the state of health is our psychological level, our motivation for self-care, which is so very important. It goes back to my original conversation with you around self-love. Self-love is optimal. It helps us with the psychological motivation to engage in self-care. You cannot have, there is no health without mental health. Mental health and physical health are intertwined. And then we get to the foundation of our state of health, which is the spiritual realm, how we take care of our spiritual lives, our sense of meaning, our sense of purpose, which drives our self-care. It drives our motivation. It drives our psychological well-being. And it also moves us into those healthy behaviors and ultimately the healthy lifestyles. And then ultimately, of course, like as the state of our health, which is the top of the iceberg. And that's where we want to make sure that we understand the underlying elements that create the state of health. So since we can't interact, I want you to interact with your own reflections. Reflections is a wonderful tool. It's a self-education tool. It's to look at this particular sketch. Let me tell you about this sketch. This sketch was sketched out by a member who is very active in the mental health recovery movement, a person who has lived with severe and persistent mental illness all of their lives. And the movement says, nothing about us without us. In other words, what the movement has done is push the behavioral medicine to be in partnership and collaboration with people who they provide services for. So providers of services and recipients of services share power, share partnerships in care. And that's what this workshop is all about. It's really about developing the type of empowerment that you can speak eye to eye with your provider, that you have a wellness plan to discuss with your provider, sharing with your provider what your wellness goals are in areas of mental, physical, nutritional, movement. And we're going to get into some more aspects of a whole person wellness wheel. In other words, this particular sketch says we can no longer acquiesce to our providers. We can no longer let providers have power over us in our treatment and care. What we want to do is be in partnership with those scientists, with those practitioners, or our holistic practitioners, our counselors, our massage therapists, our acupuncturists, as well as our primary care and our specialists, or even surgeons. We want to be in relationship, but not one down or one up, if that makes sense to you. So we're going to explore what we call the 12 dimensions of wellness. This is an overview. This work comes out of the Wellness Inventory, which comes out of the National Institute of Wellness. And it's all a part of the early pioneers like Jack Travis and others who have looked at what it means to have what you call whole person wellness. So you look at these quadrants and think about yourself. Think about who you are in each of these quadrants and what these quadrants mean to you. And I've also said the first quadrant and the most important quadrant is our self-love and our self-responsibility. And that's what this workshop is all about. It's about us and how we treat ourselves on an everyday basis. Paying attention to ourselves, getting in touch with our bodies, getting in touch with our breathing, which is the gift of life. Breathing creates energy. Our sensing, how we are sensing things, how we're smelling and seeing and feeling, getting in touch with that. Because the trauma and other types of high levels of stress disconnect us from sensing. It disconnects us from every aspect of these 12 dimensions. We have to pay attention to how we're eating. And we know there's lots of diets out there and lots of way of eating that's recommended. But we all know that there's some basic ways of eating that you can enjoy. But we know that fresh fruit and vegetables are primary. We have to have our vegetables and we have to have fresh fruit. And it's not about dieting, it's about having a diet to support your well-being. We have been over inundated in this society, as you well know, about this diet, that diet, this diet, that diet. But the bottom line is you find the most appropriate way that you want to support your healthy eating. What is key is movement, which is one of the most challenging part of the 12 dimensions of wellness, is movement. We have to move our bodies. And so we oftentimes don't engage in a lot of movement because we think it's a burden. But I want to encourage you as a health and wellness coach today, as you fill out your wellness plan goals, is to have fun with your movement. Find fun in your movement. Basic movement is walking. That's what the body is designed for. So just a good walk every day is sustainable for health and well-being. However, there's all kinds of movements. I mean, there's, aerobics. I mean, I like to put on my oldies and goodies and dance. There's all kinds of ways that we can engage in swimming and yoga and aerobics. And I mean, whatever way that you enjoy, but make sure you enjoy it. And also, moving right along, get in touch with our feelings. So very important. Also, making sure that we get in touch with how we think. Also, play. As adults, we need to play. Get those things, play with the kids, play games, play whatever the kinds of things that creates play in your life. That creates energy and working, communicating, our intimacy. We all need intimate lives, and we need healthy, intimate lives. Finding meaning in our lives and transcending, which means moving on to new goals and becoming optimal. So that's the 12 dimensions of wellness. I want you to think about who you are, what's your behaviors related to these 12 dimensions of wellness. And so, John, I'm going to stop right here before I move into each one of these quadrants to see if there are questions or anything in the chat that we need to address.
Okay. As she was saying, and there's a lot of rich information here, what questions have come up for anybody that we can explore?
If not, we can keep moving on and maybe we'll get some later on, but just want to give the audience an opportunity to do some sharing.
Here is a question. Any suggestions on how to balance these dimensions?
Absolutely. And your wellness plan is going to help you do that as well. And so we're getting ready to move into that balance. Good question. Going to get ready to move in that direction as we move further into the workshop. Okay, so let me go ahead and address that question right now. Thank you for asking that question, because there's a reason that we're using the wheel as a concept. The wheel is a symbol of balance. When we are moving along in our lives, it's the wheel just moving along. That means that we're kind of well balanced. But the wheel is like a tire. And so you know how it feels when you need air in your tires, they kind of lump along, and we need to really stop by and get some air in the tires. And after we put air in the tire, guess what? The car just rides like so smooth. And it's the same thing with our bodies, minds, and spirits. We have to make sure that we're forever, ever vigilant about making sure that we adhere to these quadrants so that our lives roll along with a sense of fluidity, a sense of flow. So this wellness system that you're looking at here creates energy. It's an energy system. We are energy transformers in our own lives. All life processes, including health and illness, depends on how we manage our energy. Putting together a person's energy inputs and outputs, we have the complete wellness energy system. The 12 life processes are the basics of the wellness inventory. And the inventory is a part of the coaching assessment that we use as wellness inventory coaching. So when you hear the word inventory, it comes out of our coaching perspective. So the balance is to pay attention to each of the quadrants when you sit down and do your self-reflection and ask yourself, what areas of my wellness plan do I need to pay more attention to? Do I need to have more goals? Do I need to set some more goals? Do I need to change my goals? Or do I need to just increase the kinds of things that I want to do to make sure that I support my health and well-being? So here's another concept map that shows you that energy of eating and sensing and breathing, how all of the concepts that are depicted in the wellness, holistic wellness wheel, all intertwine. They're all very confluent. They're all very intersectional. That creates our energy system. So the first quadrant that I've been expressing a lot during this workshop thus far is self, responsibility, and love. I want everyone to really think about how you are responsible to yourself and how you're loving yourself, and to set some goals to increase that love, that self-love. Wellness is like a bridge supported by two piers. Each pier is crucial to the bridge's integrity, just as the two principles of self-responsibility and love are fundamental to the process of wellness. This is the base of all optimal health, is self-love and self-responsibility. So please take a moment right now and think about how you want to increase your self-responsibility and love. Moving on to the next quadrant. We have this wonderful gift called Prana, and it's a gift of life. Breath is a gift of life. Breathing is our primary energy input and helps us focus the mind, heightens sensory awareness, calms our emotional state, as well as promote relaxation and a state of mindfulness. So as Rami said at the beginning of the workshop, we have all the tools that we need to keep ourselves well every single day and throughout the day. So the idea is to become mindful every single day of how we are breathing and how we're using our breath. And if we need to calm ourselves down, then we focus on our breath. We focus on our breathing. Do not take it for granted. Breathing is key. That's why you see it used in yoga. You see it used in meditation. You see it in swimming. And you see it in sports. You see the breath supports the energy system. Any question? Yes.
Dr. Deborah, there is a question. Someone asked, how do they do self-responsibility and love in a healthy way?
Thank you. Very good question. The first step is to start to think about how you want to support your health and well-being. Put it more simply, how do you want to feel every day? Do you want to maximize your energy? Do you want to accomplish your dreams and your goals? Do you want to have flow in your life where things are spontaneous? We all have the power to do that, but often what we need is each other to talk about these things in a very open and down-to-earth manner. So that way we can embrace our self-love. Anything that we have coming into our lives that creates overabundance of stress and disconnects ourselves from our own knowing is not self-love. Self-love is about feeling good and treating ourselves well. And I hope that answered your question. If not, make sure you put it in the chat and we'll have further discussion about that, since I can't connect with you through voice, but we can certainly keep putting things in the chat. John and I appreciate that. And any questions that you have, I will try to address them directly. And if I can't, provide you with resources where you can move deeper into this work. So let's move to the next quadrant in our whole person wellness energy system. Sensing. Sensing enables us to effectively navigate our external environment and heighten our situational awareness through the experience of light, heat, touch, sound, odor, taste, and movement. To get in touch with our senses, which helps us become mindful. It helps us to become more alert, to stay aware of our surroundings every single day, to be plugged in to ourselves, because when we're plugged into ourselves, we can be plugged into our families and also the service that we provide in the community. So sensing is so important. Or even when you're not feeling well, you have this sense of, I'm feeling different. Wonder what that means. So that's so important. Sensing is a real critical part of the energy system, teaching us what our minds and bodies are experiencing on a day-to-day basis. And eating, as we well know, eating fresh, whole foods in moderation is a primary means of nourishing ourselves and providing energy to support our optimal living. And I'm not going to go into asserting a particular diet or way of eating. That is something you have to discover for yourself. But bottom line is, we always want to make sure we get plenty of vegetables and plenty of fruit every single day. And living here in Colorado, I've been out here in Colorado for about 3 years now, and water is so important. It's recommended that we drink half our body weight in water every single day. So carrying around a water bottle at your desk when you're working or when you're walking or out doing exercise, having water creates energy. Our bodies are made up of water. 90% of our body is made up of water. So eating fresh fruits and vegetables and drinking plenty of water is critically important for whole person wellness. Moving. Moving is a basic expression of our life energy. Maintaining a dynamic balance of movement and rest is essential to our health and well-being. A lot of us have been, I guess you would say, socialized now maybe in some of our early education. I know when I was coming through, we had physical education at school, and sometimes it could be boring. We call it calisthenics. So, it's like a regiment. So sometimes it wasn't so much fun, but the fun came when we played, I guess you would say, volleyball, or we played basketball, or we played dodgeball, where we were moving and having fun, and it wasn't so structured. So think about movement is so very basic. Sanjay Gupta, as you well know, you see Sanjay is the one of the medical experts for CNN, and he's also a neurologist. He has a new book out called the Keeping Sharp, and he talks about building a better brain at any age. One of his key pieces in the book talks about eating berries, increasing our berries, because it's the elements in the berries that feed the biochemistry of the brain. And he says 2 things we have to do to stay mentally sharp is to move our bodies and to eat more berries. So just know that these quadrants are all intertwined, even though we're dealing with them piece by piece in this workshop. But just understand that you might be thinking, you might go to your sensing quadrant, you say something, I'm not feeling so well, my energy is low. Then you start thinking about, I haven't been walking. So when you go out and take your walk, then your energy level increases. So you see how the sensing informs the physical. And it's the same thing with eating. Why am I having such headaches? What have I been eating? All of these things in the holistic wellness wheel here helps us to ask ourselves the questions that we need to ask ourselves to keep on setting those goals and correcting the kind of things we need to correct in our behaviors to help us move toward the optimal side of that wellness continuum. And I hope that makes sense to everyone to know that each one of these quadrants are all interrelated. And I just talked about feelings. The expression of feelings, fear, sadness, anger, joy serves to motivate both thought and action and acts as an integral guidance system. So we know that, I know that I have lost some loved ones, a couple that, related to COVID and just the idea of losing loved ones. And we had over 500,000 people in the United States have lost their lives to COVID. So we're all feeling all kinds of things related to fear, sadness, anger, and even joy. And then we've lost lives in the African-American community to police violence and other forms of violence. So we all have these feelings, and we want to be in touch with those feelings. We want to embrace them, but we also want to embrace them to move us to a sense of homeostasis and well-being, and not to the point where it creates illness, but not to deny them, but to embrace them and work through them. But to be in touch with our feelings is the critical element here in this particular quadrant. And thinking, my goodness, our thinking can be our best friend or our enemy, as we all know. Being mindful of our thinking enables us to make positive choices for personal well-being. Oftentimes, one of the components of trauma is what I call ticker tape thinking, ruminating over and over and over the same incident or that has happened to us, or the same critical element in our lives that is important to us, but it keeps going on and on and on, and we seem to can't change it. But think about it. We have the power to change the channel. When we're watching television, we see a particular program we don't like, we just change the channel. And so we have the power to change our thinking. We don't have to keep thinking to the point where we get into a rut, where it starts to wear down on our health and well-being. And that goes back to what I shared earlier. There is no health without mental health. So we have to be mindful of our thoughts and how our thoughts are either serving us at a particular moment in time, or how our thoughts are not serving us. And know that we have the power to change our thinking, change the channel. And ways to do that is basically getting in touch with our breathing. Meditation helps. Calm down, sit down, or get into a yoga stance, just sitting someplace that's comfortable and just breathe and just meditate and let the thoughts come in and let the thoughts go out. Let the thoughts come in and let the thoughts go out. And eventually, in meditation, the thoughts will begin to subside. And some of those ways of thinking just go away. And they happen with movement. A good walk, a good stretching. Stretching is so very important. When we move our bodies, it helps us support healthy thoughts. John, are there any questions or comments in the chat at this point?
I don't have any, but I do have some information.
Okay.
People can now, because of our splendid Olivia, can click on the mute button and unmute themselves so they can ask you questions directly.
Oh, okay.
Also, though, they need to remember that this is being recorded, so it's not going to be edited or anything like that. So they may not want to give out their social security number or something like that. But they can unmute themselves, speak into the space, and then put themselves back on mute if they wish.
Okay, excellent. So I'm going to move to a couple other quadrants, and then I would like anyone who would like to speak with me, I would just love to hear your voice. So let's move on a little bit, and I will stop here in a few minutes. Playing and working. Balancing work and play supports our personal health and well-being and gives us the energy to live optimally and perform at a high level. So we as adults, sometimes we forget to play and we do a lot of work, but we don't play. So the idea is how can we, and we hopefully we're enjoying our work. And if we're not enjoying our work, we need to think about how do we enrich our work life so that we can enjoy it? And how do we intertwine work and play? But it's so important. You see, children, play for children is therapy. That's why children have to have playtime. And guess what? We adults have to have playtime too. So whatever it means to free your spirit, out bouncing the ball, using a jump rope like you used to do back in the day, play jump rope. We used to play jacks on the front porch, or playing chess with a friend, playing checkers, or knitting, or whatever your personal play is. That should be a part of your wellness plan that you're working on during this workshop. So I'm going to stop right here at playing and working, and I'd like to take a couple questions, whoever would like to share. If there's no one, I can keep moving forward.
People can still do the chat in the box or the Q&A if they want to get something out, but they're not interested in speaking it into the space. But if they want to go ahead and be unmuted, just let us know, and we can do that, and we can have all three ways of communicating.
Exactly. That's excellent. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
So moving right along, communication. So very key. It allows us to share our internal reality of thoughts and feelings with others, allowing us to convey our wants and needs. Communicating, as we well know, is very complex because oftentimes we don't feel like we're understood. And that can be very frustrating. So there are skills that we can become mindful of and develop when we're communicating. And this is something that we can work on for a lifetime. There's no perfect communication, but there's tools that we can use to move communication to more effectiveness. For example, as a workshop facilitator, I like if I was with you organically, or if we were engaged in verbal communication, and we know that communication is both verbal and nonverbal, I would ask you, how are you making sense of what I am communicating? Do you understand this particular point I'm trying to make? So that way it says, I'm not taking for granted that what I'm sharing with you in this workshop, that you have the same perspective as I have. All I'm doing is verbally sending out information in a one-way communication. That's what we're doing today. If we were in a group, we would have this wonderful benefit of hearing all the perspectives of people in the group. So we would have all these dynamics and all these different perspectives in the group that we can learn from everyone in the group. So communication takes different forms. We can also use the gift of feedback by saying, how do you make sense of what I said? And then you get the feedback and you say, oh yes, I meant that, but I also meant this. You can always check in. Am I making sense? Or let me add some more to that. But it's also our tone of voice, which was really key with my mother. And whatever I was communicating, I had to make sure that I came with a pleasant tone of voice, a tone of voice of respect. And we want to do that for each other when we're communicating, is have a tone of voice of respect as much as possible. So moving on, because we could spend a whole workshop on communicating, but just know that communication is so important when we talk about whole person wellness. And intimacy. Intimacy is a major component of our health. We don't always think about intimacy and happiness. The foundation of intimacy is trust. Whether with a friend, a relative, or a love interest, here we explore 12 types of human intimacy. This is what all of these quadrants are, is related to intimacy. We have to be able to know we have people in our lives that we can show up and be our total whole self. As an elder friend of mine communicated in a group last evening, that nothing's ever perfect. We need to know that. There's no such thing as perfection. But we need the support of other people. We are people, need people. And so we have to have our friendships. We have to have intimacy in our life. However you have that in your life, make sure that you can show up and be your whole self, and that you trust people that you allow to be close to you, that you can share and not feel judged. Finding meaning, so critically important. Everything we do needs to be on purpose. The stretch for meaning involves basic questions. Who am I? Why am I here? Address these questions encourages a life balance. So the person who asked the question about balance, this is key. So take a moment in your notes or on your wellness plan and ask yourself, who am I? Why am I here? And what is my purpose? One of the things that is very helpful, it's helpful for some people, it's not helpful for everyone, is journaling. It's a way of reflecting. Sometimes just sitting down with a good book, or just sitting down and just being, just be, and just think about your thoughts. We call that in mental health metacognition. Just think about your thinking. It will teach you so much about who you are. That gives you an opportunity to say, I want to do more of this, less of this. I want to incorporate this in my life. I want to, allows you to set more goals. It allows you to really celebrate what you have brought to your life already. Affirm yourself, what you've already done, invested in your life, your education, your family, your health and well-being. All of that needs to be celebrated.
Dr. Deborah?
Yes,
We have a comment by Sarah. Sarah, can you speak? Okay, tap on your microphone and it should let you open.
Did you mean Sandra?
I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay, I just had a couple of questions.
Sure.
Uh, um, on the different types of meaning, is there a way I can see all the, of intimacy, the 12 types? Is there a way I can see what they are? I know you mentioned them, but I'm trying to take notes and I'm not doing that good. Um, and then also on finding meaning and journaling, I've always had trouble journaling. Is it like a diary, or how do you journal?
Good question, Sandra. I'm so glad you asked that question because it gives me opportunity to share a couple of resources that you may find useful. First of all, in the area of intimacy, I didn't go into any categories in intimacy. What I was saying, the 12 dimensions here in this wellness wheel that you're looking at, all of that relates to intimacy. All of that has to do with intimacy. But when we talked about intimacy, when I was on that particular quadrant, which I will get back to, is trust in our relationships, whether it be friendships, a love interest, a relative. We must have intimacy. It's so important to our health and well-being. And then if we do have people in our lives that are not serving our health and well-being, we need to make some adjustments. It might not mean cutting them off. It just might mean being honest about, this is what I need from you. And this is what I want to give to you. It's increase the richness of our relationships. I hope that's helpful. And then I want to speak to you about journaling, but did I respond to your question around intimacy?
Yes, thank you.
Now, in the area of journaling, now people do it in different ways. People just sit down with a blank book or a blank piece of paper and they just start writing, freestyle. Whatever comes up to their thinking and feelings, they just start writing, without any kind of structure, just getting it all out on paper. For some people, that is a good release, because when you go back and read it, you don't have to worry about any grammar rules or crossing the I's dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Don't worry about any of that. Just get the words out, get the feelings out on paper. Now, other folks, one of the things I found helpful, because I do both things. I do freestyle journaling, but also Michelle Obama has a wonderful journal out. It's called Becoming. It's a companion to her book. I know a lot of you are aware of Michelle's book called Becoming. It was one of the best sellers and still a bestseller in the world, in the country, nationally and internationally. But the companion book is called Becoming Journal. And she has some prompts in there because the whole purpose of her book on journaling is that we all are becoming. In our health and well-being, we're all becoming every single day, which is a wonderful concept, that we're all growing every single day. And that's what health and well-being is. It's a lifetime of becoming. So her journal has prompts in it where you can start to think about various aspects of how you are becoming and how to enrich your life. And she has spaces in there for you to respond to some of her prompts. So I would recommend, if you wanted to start journaling, that is a good source. And there's lots of other sources around journaling as well. But
thank you. That's
okay.
Very helpful.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Sandra, for asking that question. Any other questions?
Dr. Deborah?
Yes.
Eric says something here about millennials, and I think it's important if we can get him to unmute and ask his questions. I think it would benefit everybody.
Awesome. Eric?
Yes, can I be heard?
Yes,
Great. Yeah, so one thing when you were on the dimension of finding meaning, something I commented was that meaning's one of those huge conflicts for a lot of folks who are millennials, and particularly about feeling lost in the world, and also trying to find others that understand them, or even work that aligns with purpose that they identify themselves with. So I don't know if you could speak on that, or maybe even talk about maybe multi-generationally, how finding meaning maybe is different for folks.
Oh, that's an excellent question. That is so very important. First of all, for millennials, I just want to give you all generationally, even though I don't believe in carving up generations. You know, I think there's youth and there's elders. That's kind of how I think about things. But for the sake of identifying the millennials as a generational cohort, I want to affirm your energy around social justice and social change, because the country has given you a raw deal. It's charged you too much for higher education. You know, we've had economic downturns, but despite all your challenges, the millennials have moved forward and have gotten in the streets and said to this government, we need change. And I want to affirm, Eric, I just want to affirm your generation for that. And so within that comment, there is meaning, because millennials are saying, we want a different type of society. That's meaning, that's finding meaning right there. I think that's what drives your generation, is to say, we want a healthy, multi-ethnic democratic society where people get their basic needs met and people can flourish and enrich themselves in their lives. Now, the other part of my comment is going to relate to something that's most important, and that is that millennials need to connect with their elders. Now, I'm not a millennial. I'm what you call a baby boomer. And even at this point in my elderhood, I'm an elder, but at the same time, I have elders that I communicate with that bring me insight, brings me wellness, brings me wisdom. So what I am encouraging every millennial on this call to do is to seek out those elders in your life and respect them and listen to them and communicate with them and let them share their life experiences. And they will let you know that everything is not a big deal. Things that you think, and when you're younger, you think it's a great big deal. When you talk to the elders, they will smooth that out for you and pull you into a sense of grounding that's so important. Plus, it's not one way, it's just not elders helping millennials. It's really about you helping elders, because when the elders have an opportunity to share their wisdom, and I'm not just talking about this sense of oldness, old people. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who have lived a meaningful life that deserve to be called elders, elderhood. And so that is an optimal health and well-being issue that's culturally appropriate for all of us to get in touch with our elders. So Eric, what I need from you is, have I addressed your question?
Yes, you did, absolutely. And I agree so much on the fact that I can speak to some elders in my life that have done that exact thing, where they help ground me and not worrying about the things that my age group could, overanalyze or just be very worried about. Because you're right, society definitely has a different impact on us about how we navigate it. So yes, you did. Thank you very much, Dr. Wilcox.
Well, thank you for asking the question. And I just want to say, keep on putting that leadership out there. This society needs your generation.
Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm. So let's move on and finish up looking at the last aspect of the holistic health and wellness wheel here, is transcending. What does that mean, to transcend in our lives? Transcending is an experience of flow, of being fully awake and engaged in the present moment, connecting us to a deeper reality. You know, we're all, I would say most of us on this call have probably been educated here in the Western part of the world. We have been Westernized in our thinking, even though we come from multiple cultural groups, but we still are what you call Westerners. And so Westerners, can you hear me okay, John? Is everything okay? Okay. Westerners often live in the future, so far in the future, or they live so far in the past. Westerners have a hard time living in the present moment. You know, we're in the future or we're in the past. Because so much of our life is constructed around materialism and capitalism. You know, garnering wealth, obtaining wealth, obtaining things, that we have a hard time engaging in the present moment. That's why we're seeing the East meets West. That's why you're seeing Qigong, and that's the martial arts. You're seeing yoga, the Eastern medicine, acupuncture, the integrative healthcare movement is helping the Western hemisphere to get in touch where life is lived, and that is in the present moment. And that's where we can obtain our holistic health and well-being, is in the present moment. And that's why in your meditation, you're going to say, let's get fully present with our breath to bring us into the present. Because in essence, the past, present, and future is really all tied into one, and that's in the present moment. And that's what helps us transcend. And that's what helps us to be spontaneous in our life and have a sense of energy and flow. Everything does not have to be broken up into a scheduled moment so far in the past or so far in the future that we can't enjoy our lives, our playing and working lives. That's a concept of transcending. Also, transcending gets demonstrated in our spiritual lives.
I was just getting ready to ask you, how does that relate to prayer?
Absolutely. Thank you. We're on the same page, whoever that is. Thank you. Our spiritual lives definitely help us
Sandra Miller
transcend.
again.
Yes, Sandra, thank you. I see your beautiful smile in your picture. It's great. Yes, Sandra, prayer is one of our greatest healing, transcending forces of energy, of bringing whoever our higher power is, if it's God, if it's Muhammad, if it's Yahweh, if it's a higher power, whatever our religious values are, or where we practice any sense of religion, or we don't practice in a particular faith community, but we consider ourselves spiritual beings. That's still a gift from the Creator. And how we do that helps us to transcend. Particularly, you were talking about the prayer we need going through COVID, how we transcend that and how we pray. We could pray, through our verbal. We can pray out on a walk. We can pray while we're doing dishes. Meditation is prayer. Prayer gets manifested in so many different ways. But even in the research community of health and wellness, prayer heals. Prayer heals. No matter what your religious affiliation may be, it is proven that prayer heals. So thank you, Sandra, for that. Any other feedback or reflections related to any aspect of this wheel or transcending?
People can go ahead and hit the mute at any point in time and share with us. And if they want us to see their video image, they can also touch that also.
Thank you. And we really appreciate the verbal questions that we're receiving, and also the questions that you're putting in the chats, or even just your reflections. And I hope that you're working on your wellness wheel as we move through this whole person wellness concept. I want you to work on your wellness plan. I want you to take some time and think about how you're increasing your self-love and how that informs your mental life, spiritual life, nutritional life, emotional life, and considering these 12 dimensions that we have been working through during the workshop. This information is to help you move deeper into how to establish your holistic health and wellness goals. This is lifestyle medicine. Yes.
So will we be able to see this wheel again, like after today?
Yes, those handouts are available, right, John?
Yes.
That John's going to tell you how to access the handouts. Go ahead, John. We can repeat that again for everyone.
Right. If you go back to the home page where there's the agenda and there's the messages and things like that, and you click on Dr. Wilcox's image, right where her image is, there are downloads that you can take and print out your own will, or you can print out your wellness plan, so that they are there and you can get them from that spot.
Thank you so
You're welcome.
much.
Great. And I hope you copy them and take full advantage of them as you're working on your wellness goals. Thanks for asking that question. Okay, so we know the wellness, the wheel is an organizing principle. It's a concept map, and we have moved deeper into each one of these quadrants. So as we spin the wheel, say, for example, just like Wheel of Fortune, you know, you spin the wheel. I want you to think about spinning the wheel around your life. And how your life is impacted with each one of these quadrants. I hope that makes sense. Spin the wheel. How my life makes sense out of my self-love, breathing, my life sensing, my life eating, my life moving, my life feeling, thinking, playing and working, communicating, intimacy, finding meaning. Spin that wheel and ask yourself, how in my life are these particular quadrants impacting my life, and what goals do I want to establish resulting from the spinning of the wheel? So think about spinning this wheel now around your own wellness planning. Think about spinning this wheel around stress. If you put stress in your wheel, then what I'm doing now is giving you a way to work. Because as we talked about in the beginning of the workshop, wellness is a process. Wellness is daily work. The question that we often have to ask ourselves is, how are we working on our wellness? How are we working on our whole person well-being? Well, now I'm giving you a way to work, is to spin the wheel. Put your life in the center of some of these quadrants, and then some of the challenges that we are confronted with. Is spin the wheel and ask yourself, the stress that I experience in my life, how does breathing help it? What's the role of breathing? What's the role of self-love and all the other 12 quadrants? So spin the wheel around stress. Now, you're not going to be able to do all this work in this workshop, but the reason for the workshop is to give you takeaways and a way to work. So the spinning the wheel is one way to work. Now, here is one of the most important aspects of health and well-being, and that is sleep hygiene. Sleep is so very, very important in our lives, and it's the key to a healthy immune system. Quality sleep. The aim to sleep for 7 to 9 hours. Develop a routine. You know, set an alarm when you go to sleep and when you wake up. Make sure your room is cool, dark, quiet, and comfortable. Avoid screens, lots of screens, at least maybe 90 minutes before bedtime. Practice a wind down ritual, like listening to soft music, writing in a journal, or reading a book, or just meditating to clear the mind to prepare yourself to go to sleep. Now, those were just suggestions. You know yourself what you need in order to wind down. That's your own personal medicine. That's your own lifestyle medicine, is to do what you need to get good quality sleep. That's what we mean by lifestyle medicine. Now, let me share something with you, some research that I just come across that I think is so very helpful. And it has to do with sleep and exercise before you get the vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine, if you choose to get it. Here's some research that I came across. Good, and this is by a gentleman who is a board certified internal medicine specialist, and he's the director of the Northeast Lipid Association. His name is Dr. Spencer Kroll, and that's spelled K-R-O-L-L, MD, PhD. Dr. Kroll says, good sleep hygiene has been linked to the generation of successful response for other vaccines, including influenza, as well as hepatitis A and B. And what he's saying that sleep loss is linked to the fluctuations in the immune process, important producing antibodies. In other words, we build our immune systems through good sleep, restful sleep. Sleep deprivation may cause an unhealthy fluctuation in the number of specific cells needed for generating antibody production. So, similarly, getting active in a time period leading up to your COVID shot can help bolster your immunity after the vaccine. So good sleep and exercise before you get the vaccine will help the COVID vaccine to do its job in providing you with immunity. Returning to a healthy lifestyle filled with cardio, aerobic exercise, better food choices, and more sleep will help succeed in generating more vigorous immune responses, both the fighting possible of the COVID-19 infection and generating a healthy protective immune response to the vaccination. So in other words, what he's recommending is before the vaccine, get good sleep and have good exercise before you get the vaccine. And even afterwards, to get back to your healthy eating, fresh fruits and vegetables, and other healthy eating patterns that you may have. And if you're taking your vitamins and other supplements, get back to those kinds of things right after your vaccine. Any questions?
Dr. Deborah,
Yes.
a couple of people have said, one person has said that reading before bedtime is a way for them to wind down. And someone else has said the good old warm milk has helped them go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of people have offered suggestions and ideas and things that have worked for them.
That's awesome. And that's the real benefit of being able to have the chat, is to share our collective knowledge, that we all have things that we can share with one another that helps us have a whole resource of ways of having good sleep. And also avoid caffeine in the evening. A good warm herbal tea, in the evening can help. Green tea or herbal tea can also help with winding down. Any other suggestions for good sleep?
I have a question. This is Sandra again. I'm sorry I keep coming in.
No, it's okay.
I have a really bad habit of watching TV until late. And I have read and learned that if you turn the TV off, you'll begin to sleep better. And because I'm an international flight attendant, I don't sleep very well. And I think I need maybe self-responsibility or self-love or something to make me turn that TV off.
Well, Sandra, I want to say this, and your questions are welcome, because I know that what you are asking, other people are asking as well. So they're very beneficial. Now, if you feel in your health regimen that TV is not serving you before bedtime, then self-love and responsibility would be to turn it off and incorporate some other activities. However, for some people, the TV might be a good aid to go to sleep. You see, so one size does not fit all. We can't be fundamental about this. The goal is to find out what brings you to good sleep. And that's what's important, because the bottom line is you want to get that good, 7, 8, 9 hours in so that you can keep that immune system built up. So everybody's going to have a different ritual. There's not one size does not fit all. Any other responses related to sleep? You all, this is one of the most important aspects of optimal health. It's good sleep habits.
Yeah, one thing that works well for me, and I put this in the chat, is that having no caffeine in the afternoon, especially the evening, helps for sure. I'm a big coffee drinker in the morning, and also I often do a weightlifting routine or a cardio routine, usually like shadow boxing in the evening, and that usually gets me tired enough to kind of get into bedtime mode. But I kind of voiced in the last speaker that chimed in that it's hard for me to sometimes change my routine around how much time I'm on my screens, on my phone, for example. I transition out of TV, but I'm on my phone a lot on YouTube and social media, and I realize that it interrupts a lot of my habits at night of trying to get some good sleep. So I'm trying to work on that as well. I love the way you framed it. It's a matter of having self-love and responsibility around changing your routine so you can have better life habits.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And that it really is about us knowing what ourselves, what we want to do. We know what we want to do for ourselves, but it's also helpful to have the kind of ideas that Eric is sharing, Sandra is sharing, other people are sharing in the chat, because it gives us some ways of thinking about, oh, okay, I might want to try that. Okay. But bottom line is know thyself. That's the key. So as you keep spinning the wheel, you can spin it around weight, the same thing. You can spin it around racism. Now, we know that systemic racism and the kinds of micro and macro aggressions that people of color in particularly, but not totally, because it happens in all types of interpersonal relationships, but relating to their identity, race, or ethnicity, it interrupts health and well-being. And just let me share something with you that I've been thinking. This is so very, I don't think it, but it's just compelling. This is an article in the New England Journal of Medicine, where this journal speaks to practitioners, and also the public, but it's really telling the medical community, this is what we need to pay attention to. I'm going to give you a quote. If you want to look this up, it's the New England Journal of Medicine, 2006. And the name of the article is Dismantling Structural Racism, Supporting Black Lives, and Achieving Healthy Equity. And so I think I might have put that in, the links, John, for people to access the article. But here, let me share this. It says structural racism, the systems level factors related to, yet distinct from, interpersonal racism, leads to increased rates of premature death and reduced levels of overall health and well-being. Like other epidemics, structural racism is causing widespread suffering, not only for Black people and other communities of color, but for our society as a whole. It is a threat to the physical, emotional, and social well-being of every person in society that allocates privilege based on race and other forms of oppression. In other words, in other forms of oppression, they're talking about sexism, ableism, heterosexism, classism, those things that have power over, as opposed to collaboration. You remember the sketch I showed early on in the workshop where the big doctor is looking down on a little patient? Well, those power over relationships, prejudice plus power equals oppression. Prejudice plus power against people of color is racism. Prejudice plus power over women is sexism. Prejudice plus power of those persons who are in the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender community is heterosexism. Prejudice plus power against those persons who are seniors or youth is ageism. Prejudice plus power against those persons who are disabled or differently able. Let me say the right language. Differently able is ageism. And I can go on. But the bottom line is racism and other forms of oppression disconnect us from what we're talking about in this workshop. And that is getting in touch with ourselves. Racism and other forms of oppression disconnect us from being all we can be. It keeps us from achieving our optimal holistic health and wellness and accomplishing our goals. And so we have to think about what we need to do in order to have protective factors as we keep navigating through these systems of oppression until we dismantle systems of racism. And I'm so glad that we are able in this society at this point, because I came through the Black Power movement, some parts of the Civil Rights movement. Now we're into the Black Lives Matter movement. It is time to dismantle systems of racism so that we can, be healthy as individuals and tend to our families and flourish in our lives and dismantle systems of oppression so that we can have holistic, sustainable kinds of societies that everybody gets their needs met. So I want to make sure that we, as we put our wellness wheels together, that we are mindful when we spin this wheel of the 12 dimensions of wellness, that we think about how we are protecting ourselves in these systems, these toxic, racist systems that can lead to premature death. And the research is clear. And I'm sure all of us on the call are aware of that, but I wanted to make sure I put this in the spin the wheel. So looking at John, I'm looking at time, and I got 12:08. I'm very mindful of that. So what I like to do is kind of do some summary and just leave a little window for any closing remarks. One of the things that Sanjay Gupta says in his book, and I recommend it, it just came out. I like Sanjay a lot. In his book, Keep Sharp, Build a Better Brain at Any Age, he says, ask ourselves this: am I getting at least 30 minutes of exercise at least 5 days a week, and including strength or resistance training at least 2 days a week? Am I learning something new that challenges my mind and demands developing different skills? Am I getting more restful sleep on a regular basis and managing stress better? Am I following my dietary values? In other words, basically, we talked about fresh fruits and vegetables, as well as supplements and other things that we put into our ways of eating. One size does not fit all. Am I connecting with friends and family members regularly for emotional support? So those are some basic kinds of things that we want to take away as you do your wellness wheel. And as up here on the screen, same thing: managing our stress, healthy eating, activity, connectivity, quality sleep, and of course, no smoking. And if that's the case, if there's anyone on the call that has a smoking addiction, there are all kinds of supports to help you if you desire to quit smoking. So moving right along here, also spinning the wheel around the coronavirus. That's another way of thinking about protective factors. And then opportunities for self-care, breath awareness, engaging your senses, walking, mindful eating, observing feelings, observing thoughts, spontaneous movement to music and sound, physical, and this says not social distancing, but now social distancing, so in other words, we are used to connecting, but we're connecting differently, just like we're connecting on the workshop today. Journaling, reflecting, meditation, and we talked about those things. So this is what the My Wellness Plan looks like. It's your handout that you have access to. And I left it blank so that way you can uniquely structure how you want to construct your wellness wheel. And I want to encourage you all, if you are motivated to do this work, is I left it blank because you can just use this all the time like a journal. So you can sit down and say, get a blank one and do a self-assessment. How am I doing with physical life, spiritual life, nutritional life, family, social, financial, intimacy? And you can just use it like a journal. Okay, I'm doing well here. I'm really doing well here. I want to add some stuff here. So you don't have to do it as a one-time thing. You can do it as an ongoing process, and you can make copies of this and keep your own wellness wheel as a way of self-assessing. That's just one way that you can use this, but you can use this in any way that you feel like it can serve you. So I'm going to also want to give a shout out to the Denver Rocky Mountain Association of Black Psychologists. If you would go online to their website, and I put the web address here. I don't know if we can put that in the chat, and cut and paste it in the chat, or we can make it available. But we are doing what we call emotional emancipation circles. And you can sign up through the calendar on the ABSI website, the Association for Black Psychologists, the Denver Rocky Mountain chapter. Now, these emotional emancipation circles, I want to say to everyone on the call, are just for people who identify as African American and Black. And this gives an opportunity to work on defying the lie of white supremacy, because a lot of the structural racism historically has been ingested into our bodies and has been ingested into our minds. So we come together in the circle and work on freeing ourselves from the lies of white supremacy and structural racism. So I'm one of the facilitators for one of the groups. Our link is online. The calendar is there. You're welcome to come. Also, Dr. Anthony Young has a group out of Colorado Springs that you can also join. But know that these emotional emancipation circles are happening throughout the United States and also international throughout the African diaspora in the Caribbean and Africa as well, because it's about healing and getting optimal. Now, for individuals who don't identify as African American and Black, we are also offering what we call story circles, wellness and resilient story circles. And I think my email address, John, is on my information in the conference. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, anyone on this call that would like to get involved in our wellness and resilient story circles, all you need to do is email me. I'll send you the agenda for that. So there's ways that we can come together collectively and do this work so that we can work on having an optimal wellness wheel. So
What I've included in the chat is the link to get back to the agenda page where your profile is and all the documents. And then the second thing that's on the chat is the Denver Rocky Mountain Association of Black Psychologists.
psychology.
Psychologists.
Mhm.
So there are two things in the chat, and one will get people back, and the other one will move them on to the other site.
Okay, excellent. So that concludes the workshop. I look forward to receiving your comments in the evaluation. John, I know that there's a conference evaluation that they can respond to their experience here in this workshop.
Yeah, go ahead and go back to the link that I sent, and there'll be a place where you can put in your responses to the workshops.
Okay, listen, I want to thank everyone, sincerely thank you for participating in the workshop. And then I hope the information has been helpful, and I wish everyone optimal and whole person wellness. Ashe. And this ends the workshop.